clear, so they really get off on it.
What's tricky, man, you have a very soothing voice. Admittedly, like I appreciate chatting with us because when we're watching you work, and every now and then you'll be saying some of the most ridiculous stuff. But in the nice, thank you for sitting with us on Sunday.
Usually people's impression of me is kind of like, it's a bit more shrill. I think it's quite a whiny. I would describe it as. But I'm thinking I'm going to try and I'm going to work on a. I was watching some of my old YouTube videos the other day, and I was sitting there going, like, I'm not big. I don't really like hearing my own voice, so I'm going to try and work on a more. I heard Bob Ross once say that he used to do his voiceovers on his thing as if he was speaking to someone in bed. So I need to work on that.
Yeah, I think maybe I need to work on that too, because I don't think anybody would want me yelling at them in bed.
Well, yeah, that maybe not in bed, but it's fun to watch on the internet. I always quite like watching you have your little fits.
To be honest with you, I don't know if everybody who's watching right now knows you have some astounding unboxing videos. I love watching that kind of content, and even your editing skills on your phone are stupid good.
Well, I've got loads of toys sat there that I need to unbox really, but I tend to I've been amassing robot figures. I've got quite excited about doing a robot special. I've got like all the different Terminator ones from the kind of Terminator figures from the 90s sat there to unbox. But I know if I start doing that, I'll spend a week. Like I got a nice iPad recently, so I don't have to edit all the videos on my phone anymore. But I still do quite a lot. But yeah, I need to get these figures done. I'm going to try and not just. I've told that many people have got a Scareglow coming. If I start uploading videos of me just playing with toys, going woo, they'll be like, where the hell's my Scareglow?
See, I don't think anybody. Sometimes the fans or the homies, they don't realize how much other pressures come into what you post because they think, well, why don't you just post your robot? And you're like, well, no. People want their Scareglows. I've got to be posting that I'm actually pass on those.
I don't usually. I suppose there's worse problems to have than the things being in demand. But it does kind of. I've got quite a few other projects that I started at around the same time as the Scareglows, which have taken a bit of a back seat at the minute because I feel I told loads of people I was like, yeah, I'll get you a Scareglow, and then the list of people I'd promised kept growing and growing, and then I was like, oh my god, I need to make Scareglows. I've kind of put it on. I felt a bit bad even doing these, the Scare Bears that I was going to do, but I had a few people kind of promise those as well. So anyway,
well, what's kind of scary. I'm sorry, I'm going to weird you out for a minute because my brain retains like certain weird things. So
right. Oh god, I bet something weird. I was on something weird I've said at one time at 2 a.m.
No, it's probably more creepy that I retained it because one, you originally mentioned when your TikTok following was first getting like kind of scary big, and you did a story post where you're actually kind of like, "Hey, sick! My TikTok following is large, but if any of the adults from Instagram would like to follow me on TikTok, that'd be really cool." And that's right around January. I think it was from January 4th to January 11th. You ended up seeing like a 4,000 follower increase in 6 days.
Yeah. What on Instagram you mean?
Yeah.
And yeah. It went really crazy with the. Well, I was making a lot of videos for Instagram anyway. I think it's like a 4x5 format that before they had the Reels function. And when I first heard of TikTok, I set one up. I mean, I felt a bit old personally going on there, but I was just re-uploading all the videos that I'd already made for Instagram, really. So like a lot of them were in sort of like, they weren't particularly in the good format for TikTok. They were just little square videos, but they were getting quite good traction. So I would start editing 2 versions of the video. I would do one in a 4x5 and one in a 9x16 for TikTok. And then that was getting a bit exhausting. But Instagram released that Reels function, which is like, it's like a 30-second long time limit on it. But that works out all right anyway, because it's a lot of people, I noticed on TikTok, a lot of people don't sit through it for more than 30 seconds anyway. It's like quite a short attention span generation, I guess. But I don't really take, I mean, I respect. Oh, I don't want to slag off all my Instagram, all my TikTok followers, but I kind of Instagram seems a bit more of like a collector audience and adults and things. It's a lot of the people on TikTok. It's just kids who want to sort of do it themselves. Or I don't think there's that many people uploading toy making stuff on there really that I've seen. I don't really follow many people on there, but
So it's funny you say that. A buddy of mine who he doesn't do any of the toy stuff, and we're hanging out, and I was talking to him, and I was like, man, like I know I've got to dive into TikTok, but I'm scared. I'll admit, like as much as it might seem like I'm like, no, like it's nerve wracking to just like put yourself out there on something like TikTok, especially the older you get, the more nerve wracking it becomes. And he was like, well, let's see what's going on in the toy community on TikTok. And right away he's like, oh, well, it seems like only like this Rainbowyawn. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, I know Rainbowyawn. I'm aware.
I've seen a couple of people on there. Like there's a guy who I follow called Greasy Creeps who does like he does sort of that sounds he makes toys, but he makes sort of like rubbery toys, you know, like what you would have got in a like an egg machine or something. But I haven't seen many people on there really on TikTok. I don't really sit and peruse on TikTok. I tend to upload my little making a toy video. I might do a dance or two and then I get off. I don't sit and watch everyone else's videos. They've got some quite cool like effects on there and things. I've seen some quite I've occasionally got taken inspiration from TikTok. I mean, from some of those filters and things, it's quite impressive what you can do these days, you know, with some of those
I would even say
fancy things.
Something that I try to bring up with some of the other homies I talk to every now and then is that you were in a special place. Like you almost spent some time on TikTok. You developed a following as you kind of figured out like the format to post in and like that rapid fire. You've even said it before in a live where you joined. You're like, dude, 2 to 5 seconds at most. Just rapid thoughts.
But I think a lot of that's just sort of trial and error from doing them. Sort of, I've made videos in the past and they don't really get any traction. There was a few times I was uploading things because you spend ages. I was going almost cross-eyed editing those videos on my phone. And then sometimes no one would watch them. So I nerded out one afternoon and watched these videos about how to do hashtags and things. And it was really, I suppose it was the hashtags more than anything that helped me get a bit of traction on the posts. On Instagram, certainly.
Yeah, something polar opposite to the way that the natural brain wants to work. Because everybody else, ever since you dropped that the one day, everybody I talked to, they're like, I was thinking the opposite. And you're like, exactly. So you were talking about how you'll actually drop. I'll let you explain how you position your hashtags.
Sorry, what do you mean? Sorry, with the 100,000 sort of.
Yeah, putting yourself in and amongst the most popular flooded hashtags. It might be like
So I mean, I've seen a lot of people will type in like the word toy or the word art. And when you go to type in your hashtags manually, it'll tell you. Well, if you type in toy, it'll come up like 4 billion hashtags or something like that. And if you use that hashtag, you'll just get lost in a sea of hashtags essentially. But if you type in toy art or something a little bit more obscure, you'll even see toy art has something like 5 million hashtags. But then as you scroll down, you start to see more obscure things that you would never normally think of. I know a couple that always pop up with me are like toy artistry and beyond, or all these kind of. I don't know what the hell that is. It might be someone's magazine or something, and I'm just hijacking it. But like, it sounds cool. So I just sort of use those, but aim for things that have around 100,000 or less hashtags, especially if you've not got a huge following. That was how I used to do quite well off the hashtags on posts, but now that they seem to have dried up for me now, I'm not really sure. Now and again, you just get lucky with the posts. I mean, some of those reels were getting 500,000 views. But I don't know how that works yet. They're not letting you have analytics on the reels. It's a relatively new format on Instagram, I think.
I was watching them though because I'm weird, and I'll admit, like I should probably be taking more notes because I watch the way that you do things, and I can tell it's like you must have like organized files and pre-done videos and content from your lives and everything else that you're editing.
I mean, I mentioned. I know last time. Sorry to interrupt you. I know last time you'd mentioned a lot of people were struggling with the like 2 to 3 second sort of edit thing, and like I don't know if I'll be able to turn this around here. Sorry, I can. I've got my fancy iPad here if it'll let me do it. Yeah, I mean, this is a free app, but it's like you can do it on your phone as well. So I'll try and sit it on here. Oops.
Ooh.
It's I'm not going to totally nerd out for ages here, but this is this video leap thing. It's like what I do is I choose my song in advance, and I play it either on Spotify or YouTube. So this is me. I've recorded like a Cypress Hill, bit of a Cypress Hill song. And then all I do is I go on there, and if you choose the audio, you can unlink the audio from the video. I delete the video. You edit down your music so that you can sort of see where it starts there, like on a cool bit. And then all I would do is drag that to the beginning. And don't forget, you can only do it to 30 seconds long. But then as long as you cut on either the kick or the snare, it kind of stops the temptation to, because I tend to get a bit precious about my own footage, and I'll leave loads of some kind of boring shit in, and you're watching it thinking, yeah, this is amazing. But it does make it a bit stale. So I'm kind of trying to, I don't know if you can see where my cuts are going here, but they're sort of on the beat, I guess, or you could do it on the snare if you prefer. And it stops you. I tend to find, since I start doing it when I edit things to music, sometimes rather than thinking, oh, I've got too much footage here, I can't fit it all into a 30-second video, I'm going, oh shit, I haven't got enough footage here. Like when you're trying to do something different on every cut, your footage soon runs out. But I've just been recording it's downloading the live streams quite often, and then just chop that up, and it's there for you.
Fair. I'll admit I'm kind of using it as a bit of a guinea pig today, because a couple of humans are fans, collectors. They've reached out and said, man, I wish from the lives we could see the comment section, because it feels like you're basically attending a party, but you're only getting half the story. So then I was like, well, frig, that makes a lot of sense. So I decided, I'm going to set up the laptop in another room with the screen recorder set up on Google, and then I'm going to have them watching the live, and then that way, if people have questions and we miss some questions, hopefully they'll actually be showing up in the recorded version as well, just recording the screen and capturing it.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, I'm having a look through I'm having a scroll through. It's only sort of showing me who's joining at the moment. I'm not sure and a couple of people saying hello and things like that, but I'm not so sure about I don't know, unless there's any questions on your end. I wrote a few down earlier that people had asked on the story and whatnot. Yeah. But yours is bigger than mine. Well, mine's kind of indecipherable. And I've got some scare bears on the back.
Man, again, you are always going. Sorry, I don't want to make you uncomfortable or anything. But again, it's insane to me because you do these things that the live function on Instagram. Since it dropped, there has been a 72% increase of people using the live during COVID.
Right.
And it's intimidating to hop on a live, but you do it. And what I noticed is that you're always, always, always going. And I know other people who have done lives have said it almost keeps you accountable for your time. But also what I've noticed is it almost connects you with your audience. There's people chatting with you, and they begin looking forward to hopping in. Like the other day I was working, and for probably 2 weeks now I've had
Sonic 2.
And even the one when I was humming along with you, and all of a sudden, gonna paint these skulls.
I mean, I quite enjoy. I don't mind doing it so much. Most of the time, I'm not showing my face. I don't really I don't mind when it's just my minging old hands and like my kind of shrill voice. I don't get too freaked out about that. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes, I mean, some people kind of come. I've had some people who are quite critical almost. I've seen them in the comments sort of, God, how can you get away with charging this much? And then they've joined in on a few live streams and went, because they'll think, I've heard of people go, I'd be cheaper making them myself and that sort of thing. And then after they've sort of spent a couple of hours watching me paint one thing for an hour and then they go, do you know what, I'll just give you the money and you make it, Matt. Because I think there's some people expect it to just sort of, especially I've grown up quite quickly on my page. Like there's a lot of established artists who've built up a following who really, they're really in the toy scene and they've taken a long time to build that following. I mean, I'd hit 5,000 followers at New Year's Eve, and off the back of those reels, I got it was another 10,000 almost off the back of those reels. I think I'm up to about 15.
14.7.
14.7.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. I thought it was 15. But I mean, it's still I suppose the difference is a lot of them are kind of casual. They're not necessarily a hardcore toy crowd. So they don't. A lot of them don't understand why people would spend that amount on a figure or why it costs that amount. It's normally about the price. People get kind of outraged, to be honest. But you have to sort of they have to realize it's not like if they want a £15 He-Man figure, they can go get the He-Man Origins from Mattel. But I mean, it won't look quite as good as my ones, if I do say so myself.
I was asking somebody the other day. I was like, at the end of the day, I never try to fund artists charging or not charging because I don't know what your budget is, and I don't know how much you're actually taking into account. All the time that you're editing your videos, all the time that you're doing DM checks with people, all the time that you're actually doing live video.
I mean, if I was accounting for all that, I think people would be getting a real bargain. But I don't actually. I mean, it seems like a lot. I think when you're making these things, it's easy to get carried away. You're not thinking about the price. As someone who enjoys creating these things, you just want to make the best thing you can make. And then when you've got your completed thing, it's quite often easy to feel a bit embarrassed to charge what you really think it's worth, or to account for the hours you've put in. I know with my first figure, my Bob, I've got one here, my Bob Moss. I've still kept a couple. It took me so many hours doing it with all the painting and flocking, and I'd messed up some molds and things like that. And it was like by the time it came to sell it, I sort of totted up I was looking to try and make, maybe a tenner an hour, or basically at least hit like a minimum wage for equivalent to a minimum wage over here. Because I thought if I can get that doing what I really enjoy, then I'm happy with that. I can work, 12 hours a day or something that I wouldn't normally do at a crappy job. But then when I went to go sell it, some of the people that got me into it, so the first people I saw that were doing the bootleg 5.5 scale were Trap Toys. I'm not sure if you saw, they did Easy He. It was like a crossover of Eazy-E and He-Man.
No.
Trap Toys are they're in the UK. They're like they do sort of hip hop bootleg He-Man crossovers quite a lot. But I think I saw those guys doing it, and I saw a few other people. There's a couple of people who I know do really good sort of He-Man bootlegs, like a guy Frankenlander's a particularly good one. But anyway, I noticed on average the bootleg He-Man stuff was selling for about £70-80 on the top end, ranging from sort of £60 to £80, or probably about the equivalent in dollars. But I think but I knew I wanted about £110 for my Bob Mosses. I worked it out as by the time I put. So I did feel quite embarrassed. The first time I released them, I only made 8, and it took a few months to sell. I didn't have many followers, and I felt I felt a bit, like, who's this guy coming out of nowhere asking more than everyone else for his toys? But I mean, I knew the hours I'd put in them, so I just thought, well, it was either kind of compromise on the quality to get the price down, or just stick with make the thing you want to make, and if people don't want to buy it, then.
And admittedly, though, whether you intended to or not, you did something kind of really cool because, one, anybody who didn't get the first Scareglow that came out, we were kicking ourselves. We were all sitting there being like, what was I thinking? That wasn't even that bad. That was a great price for what that was. Like, I should have just all over that. And then on top of that, though, it was always really funny because there is a bit of like a mysticism about you. Like, I'm sorry to creep you out, but it's because like we've all kind of taken in little bits from what you've put out there. So we know that you've basically like disappeared into another world to work on art. We know that you're not of our world anymore. You've left.
Yeah, I'm out in the. Well, it's getting a bit dark out here, but it's just a field full of sheep next to me there.
And then all of a sudden, like,
they're not mine.
Wicked art. You're doing these crazy lives. Anything, and you're also like, you don't do anything little. You execute everything so just like it. I don't know how to explain it, man.
I suppose it's. I just do it. I mean, it's always been a hobby for me, really. I mean, I've never had a career in art. My background's been in just sort of general management jobs. I've worked in pubs and things in the past, but I've always made things as more of a kind of just for my own pleasure. So I think as long as you're doing that, you can't go wrong. I sometimes see people like asking me, "Oh, what kind of figure do you think I should make?" And it's like you should always just stick with whatever you love or what you're passionate about. I mean, if they don't sell, if you're making them to sell, and they don't. If these didn't sell, I wouldn't mind. I think they're great, but like they probably will sell. It does sound a bit big-headed, but like normally, if you're making something that you really love yourself, you kind of know, well, other people are going to probably like it as well because I think it's brilliant. But if you're trying to make something to appease others, you'll end up just boring yourself with it.
Ooh, so Jackie Carter Artist actually is asking that.
What's that? So do you set a schedule per day in the studio, or like average amount? I should set a schedule, but I don't really have a studio as such. Oh, heck, my headphones are going. I'm going to take these out. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, you bet, man.
Oh yeah. I've yeah. I should set a time. I'm looking actually get a studio because currently at my studio's just. I'm in my living room and I've just got this sort of plastic table set up here with I keep setting up temporary setups for every job. I could do with a real, like, you know, one area for painting, one area for casting, one area for. I've sort of just got. This lamp's great. I know it's a bit of I'm going off on a tangent here, but that's this lamp's been really good because I can sit my phone on top for doing all those sort of, you know, those shots. Yeah, but yeah, I don't really have a proper studio. I'm going to look into getting a studio space this year, hopefully. It's kind of a bad time to be looking at properties at the moment with the climate.
So somebody was actually asking too, and just a moment ago, they were asking you, when do you plan on having the Scare Bears dropping and where?
Well, I've only made 8. They're pretty much all sold. I think I've got 2 or 3. So if you drop us a message now, or I guess if people want to drop me a message now, the best I could do is I'll sort of go through them in order of when I've received the messages, and there's 3 available. If they don't sell, if no one's booked them, I was going to just stick them on eBay or Etsy at 8 p.m. tonight. I haven't advertised the time yet because I thought, well, I'll drop it in here, and then if anyone's sat through my droning nonsense for all this time, then they've got an exclusive deal. They can maybe get the hand on one.
So I'm sorry, just when you brought up the eBay, I'm going to touch on it a little bit again. One, really quickly, the reels you do phenomenally, but part of that is you actually do like a really awesome commercial, really. You show us the work that goes into it, how much work goes into it, so that way we're kind of like, whoa, that's insane how much that takes. And then you're like, hey, it's going on eBay. Now, how does that work for you based off of like how you build that up and knowing that you've got quite the following of people that really respect your work?
It's a bit of a, I mean, I'll be honest, it's quite in a selfish sort of way. I mean, I don't really want to be too distasteful talking about money all the time because it's genuinely not why I do it. No. I mean, the figures that I put on eBay, particularly sort of the sort of the candy skull one. I mean that. I mean, I don't want to really, you know, sort of embarrass whoever bought that or anything, but it went for like way more than 3 times what my figures would normally sell for, which is already quite a chunk, I think. So it was quite encouraging in that sometimes it's like this one here. I did it's like a kind of a, well, it's sort of, I did do a little post about it, but it's like a He-Man, it was a triple cast thing. It's like, it's like the pants were purple resin that I poured in the mold, and there's no paint on the outside. And then this is sort of, I don't know what you call it, marbled resin. And I'm not getting the best view here for you, but it's basically what I'm getting at is it took so long and such a fanny on to do that I could never do a batch of them. I don't think it would probably kill me. I think it took, there's a lot of sort of waiting in between the different processes. So I've got a mold sat there that I can only use for that one thing for a long period of time. So although I enjoy doing them, it was kind of like I knew I could never do batches of things like this. So it has been quite encouraging that I can put them on eBay, and it almost makes them the odd one-off worth doing now.
Right.
And of course I get another video out of it. Am I getting funny audio here? It sounds like I can hear myself. That's all right.
I guess you're getting a little bit of feedback, a little bit of delay or feedback there.
I'll try and get my I'll put my headphones back in. They ran out before, but it keeps beeping in my ear. Maybe it'll work.
And then 666 Toys was asking, where did you get from?
Where'd you get the what from? Sorry.
666 Toys was curious about your desk light, your lamp.
Oh, just Amazon. I can't remember the brand. It was just like a desk lamp. It's got a good clamping system. I think it was 30 quid. There you go.
Ooh.
Here's the future, guys. LED. 3 light settings. I'll stop talking about the light. Don't get me started on ketchup bottles. I've got since I hit 35, I've got quite passionate about things like ketchup bottles and lights.
Yeah. Again, you don't want to get into ketchup bottles, but you actually use the ketchup bottles for your resin. I noticed.
It wasn't my I nicked that tip off Barbarian Rage. I'm not going to take credit for that one. He was on. He was obviously one of the first people I saw do the double cast stuff. He and I don't know if you've seen, Scott Cherry's Ram Man and things like that. The double cast ones, like I particularly like the Dark Dimensions.
His recent Ram. Did you see the recent one with the black, white, glow in the dark marbling Ram Man that he did?
Oh, I didn't see that one. No, I have not seen that one. I'll have to have a look. I did see a good one recently that kind of thought, oh, I'd like to copy that, which was, I'll rip that off, I guess, which was Floor Toys. Have you seen Floor Toys? FLAW. I forget the name of his toy, but it's like the Invisible Man or something like that. It's a double cast thing with a skeleton inside. And he recently cast one where he cast the skeleton inside in like ice clear and cast the outer body in a sort of a translucent blue. So it looked as though there was a skeleton-shaped hole inside, basically. But it looked pretty cool. I'm thinking I might try something similar, but with maybe a glow-in-the-dark skeleton, just a touch of glow-in-the-dark in the skeleton.
Are those the big blocky ones that look like they're like leaning over?
Yeah, it looks like he's got like a cube for a face.
Those are so sick, man. And yeah, sorry, we could probably, yeah. Admittedly, I do want to start picking off some of the questions that you've got hanging out on your sheet there that you've written down.
Well, I mean, some of them, I think some of them would take me so long to do. I mean, it's how do I make such clean molds and how to double cast and things like that. I mean, it would be a pretty long video.
Well, you've got some videos for those, do you not?
I suppose I've got some little videos on how to double cast on my Instagram. I've got all the footage recorded to make a full step-by-step tutorial. I've been saying this for ages, but it's like sometimes he'll do a video showing how to do it. One time I got really excited about spray paint and I started spray painting all these little space pictures and I was like, oh my God, I did a video about it. Look, this is how you make a spray paint picture. And then I watched that video back like about 2 months ago and I was like, oh, you idiot, what the hell are you talking about? That's not how you use the cans. And it's like, because I got really excitable about the initial idea, but I didn't really know what I was talking about. So I watch them back now and I get a bit embarrassed, but it's like, I'm not an expert on how to do the toys. I wouldn't like people going, that's not how you do it. But I've got enough of my own experience on to be able to put a video together. And there was a lot of information that I wanted, particularly with regards to articulation and things that I couldn't find. So I've ended up kind of creating my own methods for them. So I think some of that stuff will be quite. There was a guy asking about how I put the articulation in things, and I was kind of thinking I don't really know how to describe it easily, but I thought I might be able to show you this real quick. I thought this might be able to sort of give you an idea if you want. I mean, this is just a method I've used. I'm not saying it's the method, but it's so it's like it's not the best. Right. Like here's one of my skulls. It's got a hole in the bottom, and my figures have like here's one I made earlier. It's just me. Like the figures have like a. Oh shit. Okay, it's fine. The figures have got. Luckily, I make them, so I can't get too angry. But normally the He-Man figures usually have a hole in the neck. This ball joint, I just stole it off of it was like a Sun Gold wrestler figure or something like that. And then to get this hole in here, so it's like this is a Motu Origins figure. if you wanted to make, so one thing I've been thinking of is like, let's say you wanted to get a vintage Skeletor head to go on your new Skeletor figure, because the new head's a bit weird. You would take this head off and pour silicone in there, right? And then you'd end up with something. I mean, it wouldn't look like this, but I mean, here's one I made earlier. It's not a butt plug, honest. It's a butt plug for the modest man. Oops. So you would end up with something like this, but it would look like the inside of that. And you then make a mold of your head, like this is just a simple skull mold by sticking it in a cup and pouring the resin in. I would pour some resin in there and then just gunk this butt plug in, and then it'll like create you could do that with, if you made a little butt plug of the inside of the Origins head. So if you wanted to make a custom head for your Origins figure, then when you pull that out, it's going to have the indent in, like that.
Yep.
Sometimes you'll do it and the butt plug will be a bit off center and it'll be like too close to the edge, in which case you've just got to take the cast out and do it again till you get it nice and central. Once you do get it central, I would cut some little I don't know what you call them, registration marks out round here. Here's one I made earlier. And then put tape round here. You'd still have your original in there, bearing in mind, with the new made articulation in, and then you basically pour in silicone and make the other part of the mold, which will have that articulation in the exact place every time. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself very well, but
you are. But one thing that I'm kind of curious about is on the head, it has a very like bowl-shaped indentation before it then goes in again. Is that just naturally formed by putting the butt plug into the mold?
So that, do you mean this little ridge around the edge of the neck?
Yeah, and how it nicely tapers down and in before getting wider again. So of course, then the ball joint like pops up and in there.
Yeah, well, I mean that's just it's kind of that's this section here.
Okay.
So usually when you do copy the inside of the head, it'll be a little bit bigger than. I don't really know how to explain that. Yeah, I'm not really sure. It's just like, I mean, all this is here is I just took a bootleg head, which already had articulation in, which looked like that. I just filled it up with silicone, which created this. And then, so every time I push that in, it just sort of, it already has that little sort of bottle shape in.
Right.
Sometimes you've got to kind of do a couple of goes, but yeah, anyway, sorry. I'm nerding out there about articulation. I will do, I need to do like, as I say, I've got all the footage together. I've been promising people a sort of an in-depth tutorial video for years now. Some people are getting quite mad about it, but I'll do it eventually.
Even there, like I might have talked over it, but I like how you had the registrations, because I think a lot of people would be wondering, if you're going to be doing a topper like that, how do you prevent it from shifting, moving, or anything? But just the way you just cut the little, and of course,
yeah. I mean, it doesn't look too clever. I mean, sometimes I put loads of effort into a mold and I have them. They're like a work of art. But then, that just kind of. But I mean, it's functional. It's functional. And the good thing with this one is you only get one little seam down the back of the head. I was finding previously I was making sort of paw molds where I would have a funnel on top of the head that I would have to sand off or whatever. Whereas with this, it's quite clean. If there is a line, it'll be around the bottom where you won't see it anyway.
My guys. And then, if you don't mind my asking, with popping over the ball joints, do you do that when you basically just pull them from the pot so that they're still kind of soft and malleable? Or can that happen at any time? You can just...
Well, it depends on your resin, that. I mean, I've used different... let me just grab this stuff.
Sorry.
This is a... I believe it's called P60. It's basically an easy flow resin. So this is a good resin if you don't have a pressure chamber, because it pours like water almost, very thin. The flexible resin that I use for like this Peppa Pig here. Oh, this is like, it's a different resin. This is the stuff. Oh shit! This is the stuff. This is the stuff I make the skeletons out of, but it's quite flexible. But when you're pouring this resin, it's thick. It's almost like pouring PVA glue. So if I didn't have the pressure chamber, I'd have bubbles all in the ends of my fingers, and I'm dropping Peppa Pig bits everywhere here. But if you don't have a pressure chamber, you can get this easy flow resin. I think it's called P60. I don't really know what that means, but it's got a tiny bit of flex to it. You can barely see that, but it's mostly firm. But this is what you want, really. It's you can paint it. This stuff you can't. This flexible stuff, it's cool if you want to make like Monster in My Pockets or something, or muscle figures, but you can't really paint it very easily. I mean, I've managed to paint the Bob Moss figures, but it was a lot more laborious than just painting this resin. Sorry, I went off on a tangent here. I've kind of lost my track of.
So one of the questions that came up though, but it's not quite work related, but Xeno Demon Toys was curious whereabouts in the UK you're located.
Oh, I'm up north. I'm in Carlisle. It's in Cumbria, which some people think that's a funny name because it's got cum in it. It's right on the border of Scotland. So I am kind of half Scottish. Well, I am half Scottish. My dad's Scottish, so my accent's a bit weird. I'm surprised. Sometimes people go, "Oh, that's a Yorkshire accent," if I've ever heard one, but no. But yeah, just up north, not London. I think a lot of people, especially some people do. I was speaking to one guy over in where was he? Over in Brooklyn, I believe, and he thought I was like Irish or something. I think he thought all English people were from London, basically. I think, which is fair enough. We're kind of the forgotten north up here, but we do exist.
Out of curiosity too, I couldn't help but I'm going to bounce back to it for a second. You had mentioned that if you want to paint the figure, go with the P60. Is there a reason then that you didn't do the Bob Mosses in the P60 resin to be able to paint them?
Oh, sorry, yeah. So I was talking about the Articulation. That's me about popping the arms on the figure and things. So with this resin, it sets really quick. And if you went to do it with this, I mean, this stuff's great. You can sand it. You can, if you want to make I've cast this as a hard copy. I've got some here. So these are some hard copies of my skeletons that I made. It was really delicate, the skeleton. I mean, normally I cast them in a flexible resin. This is that P60. You can see it is still flexible,
right?
But it'll also do that if I do that too much. It's not that flexible. But I've made these hard copies, which would be really good if you wanted to sort of make you would make your initial mold, cast a load of these like I've done. And then what I'm going to try and do is make one mold that will make sort of 4 of these at one time. And the benefit to the firm resin there is you can sand them and whatnot. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm still not answering any question. That resin you couldn't just push on the mold. The clear stuff you can. It's the one I use. It's quite soft and kind of gooey, and for about 12 hours, so you can push that on. But I'd already made the little band sort of thing on there anyway, so. I mean, it's mega convoluted the way I've did it, but I tried to sort of. So this torso bit of the skeleton's cast in flexible resin, which has the articulation pointing. It's like when you're doing articulation, it's kind of like, I think of it like people. The male joints have to be hard, and the female joints have to be soft. Otherwise, either your male joint will go, or your female joint will crack if it's not soft. So like. That bit's not so much like so I always make these out of flexible resin, and like those little bands. I've never actually had to dismantle them before. In theory, they should be able to dismantle, but I actually tried it the other day because I put one of my Scare Bear heads. I don't know what I was thinking. I just put it on like the wrong figure, and then I was like, oh shit. But the Scare, it's basically all that is a Care Bear head that I nicked off some other figure with a Scare Glow head inside that's been painted up and whatnot. But this is cast in flexible resin, so it actually did work out. I left it on the radiator for a minute till it heated up, and I was able to pull, because I'd never dare try it really in case they did crack. But the head pulled off without any kind of. I was worried it might. I thought if it was going to crack, it would be round here, where the inside skull would sort of flex as the ball leaves and crack the firm resin around the edge, but it seemed to work out pretty good. So I haven't tried taking an arm off yet, but that's why I put those bands in there. But yeah, sorry, that was a really long-winded way of saying probably yes, you can just push the arms on there. Whew. What I tend to do with this, because it's flexible resin, is I would often sort of cast the body like that, and then if I was to cast the head at the same time and push it on while the head's still sort of soft, it would break this peg. So I would often leave these overnight and then do the heads the next day and push the heads on while the head's soft, but this is firm, and then that way that works out. It's just a bit laborious. It sometimes becomes a bit of a technical challenge working out the order of which to do things. You think, right, well, I'll do I'll let those set so they're firm for when I push the other bits on, and
yeah, a lot goes into it. Like the fact that you're thinking out which resins to use for which part of the process that will best work for functionality to make the next step easier.
I suppose it's kind of backward. I mean, really, you could replicate. It would probably be. I mean, there's a guy who I follow who I think is really great called Frankenlander. He does a lot of they're just straight bootleg knockoffs, but he does them in all clear resin. But he'll actually cast the two separate halves of the torso, much like the original figures would have been. So if you're doing that, I mean, you've still got to have a fairly flexible thing for the arm to push on there. I mean, I know most people just use magnets, and I did consider that myself, but I'm just too clumsy. I ordered, I forgot his name now. Acquired Taste Industries. I ordered the Mudder figure a little while ago, and he threw me in a free Oompa Loompa, which was magnets. And I've knocked it over and I've lost the head. Like it was like a game of Jenga. There was just bits went flying, and I thought, oh my God, if I had loads of magnet figures, I think I would just lose bits everywhere, I think.
Yeah. No, and admittedly though, you've kind of streamlined the process. Like as much as it might have been a total pain to figure out how to make the molds to work the way you've done them, you're not sitting there drilling a billion figures every night or sitting there super gluing a bunch of magnets in either.
Well, I suppose it pays. Yeah, that's good in the long run, and the cost of magnets, obviously. But I suppose it just takes that bit longer with the mold making process and thinking it through. You've got to really have your original right before you can begin the molding. It'd be quite nice to just sort of, chop the arms off a toy, and I could pretty much mold it there and then, and not have to. It delays the process a long time doing this. Sometimes my whole point originally I didn't plan to sort of cast all these He-Man bootlegs. I wanted to just get a mold that would make a He-Man basic body, like a legs, arms, and torso, with my own custom articulation in that I could then, because it's much easier to sculpt on this than it would be to take a vintage He-Man and use like epoxy sculpt or whatever on that. Because with it being flexible, sometimes it cracks off and things, whereas if you've cast a firm resin, it's quite easy to sculpt on top or carve bits out. So originally I wanted to make the He-Man mold so that I could basically cast almost like a blank book that out of the nice resin with my own custom articulation already in it, so I didn't have to think about that again. And then I could just sculpt on top of that. But you probably noticed I didn't get that far. I just sort of made the He-Man things and started casting and went, oh my God, look at all the colours I can do. And I've never really sort of used it. I've started doing one. I've started doing a few. I've got this. This is kind of a mishmash of. I started doing it's like an ode to some of my favourite toxic toys of all various descriptions. It's gonna have I started going too silly with it, and I've made a slime feature so that slime's gonna come through the chest and things. But it's kind of went on the back burner. But yeah, that's the advantage to having, once you've got your articulation sorted once, I can just cast this. And I know, because when you're implementing a custom articulation every time on a figure, that's as much work as the actual sculpting. Like, it's kind of the boring bit's done now. I can just sculpt right onto these. I just never did it. I got too excited once my molds were finished and just started casting He-Mans right away.
It's hard. Destroy and Build Customs actually is asking, what do you use to sculpt on a figure?
Well, in the UK, the cheapest one's called. I'm looking around. I don't think I've got any to hand. It's called Oh shit! Totally fine. That's fine. It's called Milliput. It's it's an epoxy putty, but it's about £2 or £3 on eBay. You can get this if you're across the pond. I think this stuff's a bit easier to get hold of. This stuff's arguably better. I do think this stuff binds to things better, but Milliput's easier to sand. And if you can get Milliput do a yellow one, and they also do a Milliput white superfine, which is more like this one. Oh, sorry about that noise. I was going to try and show you on here. I've used this is the P60 firm resin torso with the grey stuff's epoxy sculpt. This white armour's actually, I cast it in flexible resin, and I've managed to sort of bind the armour to the torso using epoxy sculpt. I've tried to get the epoxy right in there so that when I cast it, you know, no silicone's going to creep around the back of the armour. And it looks pretty shit, but I'm going to be making him all lumpy and stuff anyway, so you won't see most of that. But yeah, you can see there I managed to bind a flexible resin to this firm resin, so it is pretty good. You can sand them and things as well, which is nice. What a squeaky stand I've got here.
If you don't mind, I've even got a question that's kind of along what we're talking about right now that somebody was asking earlier. What's the most difficult mold that you find to cast on?
To cast on?
I'm not sure if you're talking about like the mold type or even the type of figure. I'm not sure which one they're asking there.
Well, I mean, I'm slightly struggling with the skeletons for these. They're so thin. It's like weapons for the He-Man stuff. I mean, most of these molds. Hang on, let me just. I'm just going to change this camera around so it's not looking at my face anymore.
No problem.
Oh, excuse my crazy notes. Right, I'm making a right mess here, aren't I? I've normally this is a mold that this is a really it's a good mold in that there's very little cleanup needed. I put my skeleton body in here, or you don't have to, you know. Anyway. I pour the resin in the top. This is a 2-part mold that I've made using monster clay in a Lego box. It didn't work right away. I mean, the first time I did it, I just put a torso in there, and I don't know if you can see here. I would pour resin in here. It would. So then I've already sort of put the articulation in before I've made this mold, but I would pour resin in here. The resin, I did have a couple of air release things here on the end of the arms. I thought of that, but the resin would pour in down the neck up to these sort of air release things, and then just stop. The resin would just go up to there. So I then added these valves. I got a scalpel out and cut these valves here on the neck joint, and then the resin would go down and it would go up to there, and I still wouldn't get the head peg, and I was like, bloody hell! And I put that one in. Anyway, I ended up putting another one in. If you ever get a mold that doesn't work that right, you can often fix them just with some strategic cutting with a scalpel or an X-Acto knife, you might call it over there. Sorry, man, what you saying?
I was just going to say, 66 Toys was actually asking on that mold, how do you get the skeletons to stay in place?
Well, they're kind of different. The torso, I cast it separately, and I push it onto that peg, so it's kind of away from the edges. The legs, I mean, I just kind of throw them in the mold and hope for best, really. They are, I mean, they don't touch the edges, but I mean, they're quite. Right, I'll tell you how I made them. I'm not sure I've told them all my secrets about this, but I basically had. It's not a very good example, but I had the leg mold that I'd made, you know, for that, and I made the bones out of I think it was polymer clay or something like that, and I originally just made the bones and laid them in the leg mold so that they were kind of. You can see where they've laid in the leg mold there. You can even see where the bones have dipped in the center slightly there because the epoxy sculpt I used wasn't set that quickly or something. So then it's like once that's all set, I mean, the bones I tried to get its skeleton out and it broke straight away, broke in about 10 places. I glued it back together. I tried to put it back in and I was like, how am I going to make a mold of this? It's so dainty every time I pick it up, you know, when it was made out of epoxy sculpt or whatever. So I made the bones, I left them lying in my leg mold, and I then took some monster clay, which is like, you heat it up and it can pour like hot chocolate. Well, I melted some of that while my bones were still in the leg mold, and I poured the monster clay on the back of my bones, so it kind of created like a sort of a support thing for them. And I could then remove all the bones, even though they're quite dainty. I could remove them in one go by removing the monster clay, and all the bones were just there, sort of on it. And I then made a mold for that. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself that well, but it was kind of, it's tricky to get those bones, make a mold for something this thin without either moving the legs slightly and I didn't want to do that because then every cast I make won't sit in the the leg mold very well. So I make this out of a flexible resin, and I often have to leave them sat in the correct position anyway, because otherwise the resin can flop as the resin sets and things. But yeah, that's kind of how I did it, I guess.
Wow, so much to consider there, man.
Yeah, sorry, I'm dropping a bit too much info in one go here. I think people are going to be going, "Oh my God!" I wouldn't like to put folk off. I think some people see the amount of stupid shit that I do and how much I sort of fanny on doing something ridiculous, and I think, "Oh my God, I'm not prepared." But there's an entry level for everyone. I don't think it should. You don't even have to make toys. I've seen some people just. They just have fun making packaging or painting old toys or whatever. Yeah. I'm not very, I get a lot of people sort of say like, "Oh, I'd love to," send me messages saying like, "Oh, I'd love to make some toys, but I don't know where to start." You've got all your pressure chamber and you've got all this sort of fancy stuff, but I didn't always have that stuff. Before I had this, I was just making things out of polymer clay or epoxy Sculpt. I should be on commission from them. I actually saw I saw someone doing that kind of made me think, hey, that might be an idea. Where they had something in them. I've started using recently. What's it called? Linktree.
Right.
Have you heard of that?
Yep.
It's like you put all your links in one place, because I was quite often changing my link in my bio depending on what I was trying to push at that time, whether it was a YouTube video or something on my eBay or whatever it might be. But I think, when you edit things on your Instagram, I don't think it bodes well with them. If you're ever uploading a video, for example, it's like, normally before I upload a video, I sit for about half an hour doing those hashtags that we were talking about earlier. And it's like, if I ever make a mistake and I go back and edit it, it just fucks the traction on it. It'll just stop getting any kind of likes or anything like that. I think it's pretty much like Instagram. If you post a picture of a seal, a nice cute seal, and it says, "I love seals," and then Instagram pushes it and you start getting loads of thousands of views, and then you suddenly go back in and edit the post and say, "I love clubbing seals," and then Instagram's pushing your message of hatred towards seals, then it's suddenly so I think once you edit something, it kind of just stops the traction, to my experience anyway.
That's a really.
I'm not saying anyone should club seals or anything like that. I'm not advocating club. I like seals.
No, but it's a good thing to keep in mind, because the reality is that I'm sure there's times somebody looks at what they posted and then also goes, "Oh crap," and they edit it in seconds after posting it, and
I've done that
before it even took off.
Yeah, there's quite a few things. It can knacker your post, especially as a new artist, as someone new on Instagram. Do you know when I first set up this? I've had multiple accounts over the years for all my madcap ideas. Like craft supplies and a record label and God knows what. But I think I see a lot with new artists. I see a lot of people who obviously the first step, what you normally do is go and add all your friends and family, don't you? That's what most people do. And I avoided doing that with this Rainbowyawn thing, because I was like, I've done it before, and I often see a lot of people get quite annoyed with their friends and family, particularly I don't want to, this isn't directed at any of you or anyone in here, but particularly musician type people. I often see them whining "Oh, people aren't supporting me, they're not giving me the support and all this." And I think, well, yeah, they're not, but they're your friends and family. They want to support you, but they're not interested. They don't have it's I know my friends and family don't. They want to support me and help me in what I'm doing, but they don't care about He-Man figures. I had one of my mates who was actually quite handy to have on as a bit of a critic, because he said, "Yeah, I was watching your videos, but then it's only how many times do I want to watch you pour resin?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." To someone who's not got any interest in doing it themselves, all they're seeing is just me pouring liquid all the time. It's like, what the fuck? But I didn't add my friends and family on the Rainbowyawn thing when I set it up, because if you've got your friends and family on there, they might even like your first couple of videos or whatever, but they're essentially, although they want to support you, they might link that they like the video, but they're not going to sit and watch the duration of it for a minute or whatever. So you have to kind of find your audience, I guess, like that. You do that through the hashtags and things, or just from being passionate about it and You know, these sort of things. Just I didn't set out to be Instagram famous or anything like that. Obviously, I wanted people to see my videos with the posts, the hashtag, putting the hashtags and that kind of thing in.
Yeah.
But really, ultimately, it was to just thinking, well, it'd be nice to have an audience. So if I ever decide to sell some toys, at least I won't look like a dick when they don't sell.
Yeah. Well, and admittedly too, like I think what's interesting the toy art community is a lot of people just enjoy the fact that, like you said, um, it's not as though like your friends and families they want to support you, but they're not into toys. And you'd be amazed
Yeah,
how many people are actually like they don't have anybody who can relate to how excited they get about toys.
yeah. I think for me, you know, I mean, I was my some guy saying he'd like to keep his friends and family away as far away as possible. Well, I'm kind of like that. I mean, my main apprehension with this thing, with this live stream here, was I thought, oh, my mum's going to tune in, and she's going to sit there and go, "My son's 37. He's still talking about toys." Like, but I mean, I don't really care. Everyone knows what I'm like. But you know, then if your friends and family are on there, they might like the videos. But Instagram doesn't really care about things like that. It wants to see people actually spend the duration of watching the video. Or if you've put a post up where you've got a big long spiel in the description about how you got to where you're at now,
Right.
then it like the people who are interested in it are going to sit around and read it. Your friends and family, they might go, "Oh, I'll press like to support him, but I'm not reading all that shit. I've just got up," or whatever it might be. But it sounds bad like that to not add your friends and family, but if it's something like niche, I mean, I don't expect everyone to like figures of muscly toys particularly, or bootleg toys or whatever.
Yeah. Really.
But
I've even
yeah,
had people before where they've asked me like, "Yo, like, how come you don't have me as a friend on said platform?" And you're like, "Well, because I'm kind of using that platform to just push this stuff, and I didn't necessarily think that you wanted to see that." But at the same time, what's neat is that you do have the odd person that, especially like musicians and toys and art in general, I find it's actually so interesting how many of my homies I now see liking toy posts. So I'll know them from like the music world, but like you'll always see some comics on the wall, or you'll see like a little toy, and you're like, they're
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm fairly new to the bootleg thing myself. I mean, I've been aware of it for years because I've always kind of loved toys, but never so much the boot. I think the first bootlegs I ever became aware of was like the Sucklord stuff. I remember seeing one where it was a Han Solo frosted. It was like a Pop Tart with Han Solo in the frosting, and it made me think, Jesus, I could make that. All you need to do is get an ice cube mold off of eBay with Han Solo and push some polymer clay in it. But like, or Death by Toys, I remember seeing he had a Fog action figure where it was just some like cotton wool in a packaging. I thought that was really funny. But I liked them, but I was never really interested myself. I've never collected like 4-inch size figures. I never really collected He-Man. I mean, I did when I was a kid. I had them when I was a kid, but it's not like I've collected He-Man all my life. As much as it's rubbish to admit, I'm just another one of those people who saw the toys that made us and went, "Oh my God, yes, He-Man!" I've still had a few kicking about. I've always collected other toys, but I kind of never really thought of He-Man as that cool until I saw that bloody. The price of He-Man figures like didn't have jack up after the toys that made us. I don't know if you've noticed.
I'll admit the toys that made us. It's weird how many people will point to that as being what got them back into toys, or got them into Motu, or got them in. And personally, for me, like I enjoyed them because it gave some of the history and backstory behind it. But it didn't all like I already had shelves of Kenner figures. I was already digging for the Kenners. It was more kind of interesting to get that lore.
I suppose I'd kind of all my things like my Kenner. I used to have all the when I was a kid. I had like Ghostbusters and He-Man and Transformers. I gave all them to charity when I was young, which I still have nightmares about to this day. But like in later years, I wasn't really interested in getting them back. I'd sort of moved on to sort of like in my 20s and that I was getting the McFarlane things. Like I like those Clive Barker Tortured Soul, like the really gruesome ones. And then in more recent years, I'd got into like the Sofubian things, and it was yeah. I mean, I'd always liked He-Man in like a kind of a sort of a nostalgic way, I suppose, the cartoon and things. But I'd never really considered getting the figures back. But even since I'd got them, I mean, I got a Clamp Champ on that, which was like one of the later release figures. I got him carded for about 80 quid a few years ago, and I sold him last year for 360 on eBay. That's like in the space of a couple of years since that Toys That Made Us. I kind of was waiting for a bit of a spike in Turtles figures.
Oh, I just lost your audio for some reason.
Went out the public eye. That's my headphones gone.
Now, out of curiosity, speaking of like the He-Man figures, somebody asked earlier on, do you have any suggestions for how you price your work?
Not really.
I think the minimum wage was somewhere at least you wanted to be making.
Well, some people have said to me, you want to be charging £20 an hour. But I mean, if I was to add up the hours that I put into them, I wouldn't be probably getting that much. I very much doubt I'd be getting that much. It really depends. I mean, I've made a lot of investment in things like the pressure chamber and the compressor. Silicone's quite an expense. I mean, I'm using condensation cure silicone. It's not platinum cure, but it's still expensive. I suppose it's like, I mean, if you just don't rip yourself off, as long as you're comfortable with it, and I mean, if you're doing something really niche like that, you think I know I'm going to love this, but no one else might, and you just really want to make it for the passion of making it. As long as you're not at a loss, I mean, that's how I used to think. I mean, Bob Moss, I wouldn't say like the first time I made the Bob Moss figures, the amount of that, it was a learning experience for me. So part of me was thinking, well, do I charge the punter for me being an apprentice, essentially? Like, I mean, if I knew what I was doing better, I know fine well if I do this another couple of years, I could do them in a quarter of the time. It's like, do I charge the customer for my own? I'm not a pro, so I guess it depends on what you value. It's like you don't want to overprice yourself and no one buys your shit, but at the same time, if you underprice yourself, you're kind of stuck with it. Then, I mean, if I'd have charged 70 quid for the Bob Mosses and then I've made some more and went, okay, they're 120 now, people would have went, well, he's up his own ass now, or whatever it would be. I don't know what I wouldn't do that. I don't think. I mean, a lot of people have said to me, oh, you're not charging enough for things because they've seen the price of the auctions and whatnot, but I don't think that's really a fair example of the value necessarily. I think sometimes when people get drawn in, I've done it myself, where you pay more on an auction because you get drawn in and you want to have it, especially if you think it's a one-off, which they are a one-off. I don't know why I said it like that.
Well, a one-off and a very unique item that you're not used to seeing.
Yeah, I suppose it's like, there's been sometimes I've done a one-off figure. I did a Resident Evil where it was just like a gory He-Man where I made a one-off card art, and it's just much the same as what I've been doing, but it was like I sold that as a one-off, and then I kind of regretted it. I was like, oh, I wanted to do more Resident Evil stuff, but like at the same time, I'm not, you can't go selling something as a one-off and then just start pumping them out because you're going to get annoyed people.
So I've
seen it myself where I've bought a one-off thing and then, or like a really limited run, and then see the same figure be released multiple times, but with a variant name on the card art and things. And I'm like, oh. I mean, again, it is still a one-off, but it seems it's less unique then, I guess. So I'm trying to, yeah. I mean, at the moment, I don't know this clear resin that I'm using. It's not made for these. You're supposed to just use platinum silicone. So a lot of it will come down to how many casts you get out. I mean, you've got to factor in the price of, the silicone divided throughout how many figures you make on top of your hours, and think, oh, there's a lot to think about. It's like making these is quite time consuming, but I mean, I'm a bit of a victim to myself because I do things one at a time. It's like I'll make the figures and then I'll paint them and then I'll make the packaging for them figures. I'm actually thinking about just getting a I don't know if you saw that. I don't know. I don't have it to hand, but it's on eBay at the minute. It was like a card back that had a sticker like that on top. It's for the. What I'm getting at is I'm thinking of basically getting a load of card backs printed with just the bastards of the Universe logo on, sort of a generic standard card back, and then I can just print these myself and stick them on for the characters, which seems kind of lame, but the the idea behind it is the Top Toys version of He-Man, the vintage versions. It was licensed to He-Man. Motu was licensed to a company called Top Toys in Argentina in the 80s, and they produced some kind of wacky variants of just to be the stand. They had the same molds, but they did anyway. They're some of the most desired amongst collectors now because they're a bit weird. But they used to just put these stickers on that were just like this. They looked a bit rip-offy, but I thought, well, it's kind of like an ode to that. And not just because I'm lazy and I want to just make all the card backs the exact same. It's definitely not for that reason. It's because it'll look cool.
And then Jackie Carter.
But yeah, that'd be nice. At the minute, I'm printing it off on glossy photo paper and then sticking it to cardboard using like a spray adhesive. And it's very laborious and a bit. I'm not 100. I mean, they look good, but they're kind of the scratch quite easy because it's photo paper. I've never been 100% happy with them.
What do you use for the cardboard for the thickness?
Well, I just get in the art shop near me. There's it's like a hobby shop. They sell 2mm backing board. I think the students buy it to like back their work on or something like for presentations. But it's a big sheet of the stuff. I normally get 10 that size out of one sheet. But it's pretty. It's not like it's got a good. Yeah, I don't know. I've not seen anyone do it as thick as that, except for that Acquired Taste Mudder figure. He's got a good thickie.
Jackie Carter was asking, is Bob Moss a bit of an inspirational figure for you, the person himself?
Oh, Bob Ross.
Bob Ross.
Oh yeah. Well, I like people like who sort of are open about the techniques. I think like there's a lot of people sort of want to play the cards a bit close to the chest, especially like. I mean, the He-Man bootleg scene's a bit of its own thing, really. I don't profess to be like an expert on the sort of Star Wars bootleg scene or anything like that. But He-Man bootlegs are the He-Man fans can be very, they don't like people messing with their brand too much sometimes. They're quite like, you know, like every time there's a new Mattel design for a Skeletor head, it's like the worst thing that's ever happened. Like everyone's in uproar. So like I've managed to get away with it with the Scare Glow thing because it's essentially like a better version of a fan favorite, I guess. But like, I don't know. It's kind of a funny one, really, with the He-Man lot. There's a lot of I see a lot of bootleggers. Most people who I see making bootleg He-Man stuff who do quite well out of it are going for more the kind of the grungy style, where it's like they're into the Mexican style bootlegs, and it's like they don't mind about a few bits of flash coming off, and they're usually sort of casting the Sun Gold Warrior, you know, like the sort of it's more of a body like this. Just don't mind my head. It looks very similar, but it's not a He-Man. You know, it's more like the kind of the really. This was one of the first molds I made. They're like I mean, I originally made. This is kind of the body that I nicked the articulation from. It was. I mean, this is a copy that I've made. But my first thinking with this one, I like this one because the entire figure was made out of a kind of a rubbery material. So I thought, oh, well, that'd be good for making the. Yeah, there you go. That was like the joint I nicked for my other figures. But yeah, like it's. I don't see that many people other than there's Frankenlander. There's a couple of people like Underworld Customs and. Oh, I'm crap with names. I always forgot. I wrote down some people that I thought that I like, some bootleggers and things, but because I always forget the names.
Even Jehovah Creations, I find he does the 5-point knockouts.
Oh yes, yeah, he does some really good
like,
stuff. Jehovah Creations. I don't know if you've seen Frankenlander's stuff, but his stuff to me has always been. I mean, he was one of the first people I was blagging with questions and stuff when I first. I mean, it's an example of like. I mean, I'm not sure. Last time I looked at, I mean, he's been doing it for years, but a lot of people, like, you know, they've only got maybe 2,000 or 3,000 followers, and I was like looking at his post, thinking, Jesus Christ, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know why he hasn't got more followers here. Like they're brilliant. They're like they're way clearer than mine. He's managed to. He did a snake face where he sort of cast all the individual pieces, and they all still work and everything. Like he's got all the. He's managed to replicate the action features somehow. I don't know how. But yeah, a lot of it's kind of the more grungy style. For the bootleg He-Man stuff, I think Frankenlander, he seems to be more again just guy who's just doing it because he loves it. Like he doesn't seem to be always out there pushing toy sales and things. He's more. I see a lot of people asking him, "Oh, can I buy this? Can I buy this?" But it's not. Probably not. I don't think it's why he's doing it. Really, it doesn't seem like that way.
Well, that's kind of some of the nicest parts about the community, and admittedly, that's kind of why I love sitting with so many of the artists, is because you end up hearing, like, it's just so nice to hear the amount of people that are like, oh yeah, like I'd still do it if I made nothing, and just like all the different passions for it. And like, I think that's what they like appeals about you as well, is that they see how passionate you must be, because you're doing it all the friggin' time, man. Like, you're caption painting, like you're always going.
I mean, passion can only take you so far, I suppose. I mean, it's passionate to a point. When by the time you've done about 10 Bob Mosses, I was like, I think I did 20 Bob Mosses on the second lot, and I'm like, right, I don't ever want to see Bob Moss again now. That's it. I do like Bob Ross, what I was saying before. I like anyone kind of inspirational. I had an idea the other day, but I missed on there's a company called Gentle Giant did some 12-inch versions of He-Man figures about 2014, and I didn't buy them at the time. They didn't get through that many figures, but there was a He-Man, a Skeletor, and a Beastman, and I'd like to get those. I mean, Beastman's who I made the original Bob Moss out of. So I thought, because the molds were ruined for these, I thought if I can get my hands on one of these 12-inch Beastman, I'll re-sculpt Bob Moss, but I'll make a giant version, and I'll implement the sort of some kind of custom articulation in the waist on the big ones. But I forgot to bid it last minute. I missed out. No, in fact, I did bid on it, but it got too expensive for my tastes.
That's not happening. Now, do you have actually, is there like a guilty pleasure that you like to grab? Like, do you have a particular aesthetic in toys, or?
Not really. I try and not allow myself too many, but like, because I tend to hoard things and collect things. I've got a lot of, I like opening toys really, but I've got loads of them when you keep them in the end up in a cupboard in a box. But yeah, they're mostly quite. I like mutants. I do like mutants a lot. I've got my little case over here. I'll give you a quick look. But they're not. I don't have much of a display going on. I just got this guy. How cool is he?
Wow.
He's from Splatterhouse. Biggie Man from Splatterhouse. He's pretty massive as well. That's from Unbox Industries. They're about to start doing Splatterhouse 2 figures, so I'm quite excited about that, because Splatterhouse 2 is one of my favorite games on the Sega Mega Drive. But yeah, I love. I don't know if you're really into the Sofubi. Do you like Sofubi yourself, or have you dipped a toe?
I've only done it with the kind of like the lower cost soft vinyl.
Yeah,
I'm almost afraid to dive in, because I know once I get some really nice pieces in hand, I probably won't be able to stop.
Well, there's some. I mean, these are a pretty good price point. These Who Goes There? You've maybe seen me doing them unboxings on my. They're like the thing I like about. They're from Unbox Industries, but they're. I mean, they're still about $100 or something. It's not exactly cheap, but you get about 12 in a box, and they're by different artists. I mean, the first couple of series of them I really liked. I suppose there's a lot of different price points for Sofubi. There's some of it's really silly. Some of it's a bit like, I liken it to almost the same kind of people who would buy loads of pairs of trainers. It's like a hype beast kind of scene, you know, like, I mean, I really like Mutant Vinyl Hardcore. I'd love to get one of the Sofubi, but they've got such a ridiculous following that I couldn't be asked.
That's also part of what's so tough with the soft vinyl scene too, is like, all the different lotteries and email lists you have to sign up on in order to get some of these really top tier figures that are still going to cost an arm and a leg and a half.
Yeah, there's a lot of good sort of more I mean, I say more reasonable. I mean, it depends. I'm not in any position to start telling other people their toys are expensive, but like there's a lot of more expensive. There's a lot sort of less expensive ones available. There's a guy who I like called Bin Busy. He does stuff. I don't know if you've seen Acid MA. He's like have you got one?
Slugger Toys. Slugger Toys actually is like a $25 soft vinyl.
I was just about to say there's Acid MA here. I was just in the comments. I was just about to big him up on the vinyl toys. He did one of my favourites, which I'm a bit embarrassed because I'm he's saying he's hype beast #1. Well, I started painting. This was one of my favorite. I'm embarrassed to show it because I started painting it in neon paints, and it's got cobwebs on the face. I got distracted with something else and I forgot. But I need to do the details. But yeah, check out the Churv. I think that was sculpted by Been Busy, and it's one of Acid MA's designs. If you check him out down there, I think I'm right in saying that. I'm sure he'll correct me if I've got that the wrong way around.
But you are really, and what's even kind of really cool I'm finding is that it's not all like Mutant Vinyl Hardcore. I would say is like a household name at this point, but there's like Basement Puke and Fret Brett, and like there's all these other dudes that are doing different stuff as well.
Oh yeah,
even Sleepy Time Naps, they make them, or Our Little Skies. So it's like really cool to see indie guys making this like affordable $10 to $25 soft vinyl, hand airbrushing it.
Oh yeah, I mean there's totally different. I mean, I don't always know how these things work with regard to price. I once heard someone say when it comes to vinyl toys, you charge around $10 per inch, or that's like a bare minimum price for a blank. So if you've got a 7-inch vinyl toy blank, it should be around $70 would be a reasonable asking price. $120 for a 12-inch. But I mean, there's exceptions to the rule, and like some people, this is off Last Resort Toys. It's a giant version of, I don't know if you remember the Trash Bag Bunch from the 90s. Yeah, it's massive. Have you seen that? That was the original, the Muckoid. He was from Trash Bag Bunch. They were like a minifigure series from the 90s that you put the bags in dissolve. Yeah, that was them. But this guy, Last Resort Toys, he's not like done, it's not like the same as, I think you saw me unbox the Jail Jaw Giant a little while ago, from Toysaurus, and that was that's really cool. I've left that over there, but I think that'll have been made with a growing, like making a mold in large using odorless mineral spirits. Whereas this guy totally resculpts mini toys. He's doing some at the minute. I mean, I don't know actually what the toy is, but a lot of people, it seems like it's like a little alien thing. But he'll sit and he makes them out of monster clay, and then this has got like, I mean, I've got the glow in the dark version, so you can't really see, but he's got little feet and like rolls of fat on the bottom on this guy. He doesn't have that on the original, but they've sort of added some fun little details. I think my also, bro, what do you think will be a good new price for blank Sherv? Well, I was happy with the Sherv. I mean, I think I paid about $70 for the Sherv, and I was happy with that. Is it Sherv or Cherv? I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing. Oh, 50. Well, there you go. There you go. $50. Get yourself a Cherv, guys. I had this in flesh pink, but I kind of went a bit daft with. I will finish painting that one day.
Is that brushed, or are you using spray paint?
Well, I mean, $50 for a vinyl toy. I mean, when you've Planet X makes some really good ones. I think Acid MA did the logo for them, but some of their stuff, it's these huge. I'll grab one.
That's just it. Like some of these things have pieces that move and come off.
Yeah. Yeah, I've knocked them all over. Yeah, look at that. It's bigger than my massive head. And like these are, I mean, it was, I'm not going to say it was cheap, but it was like $120, I believe, maybe $150, which for these things is pretty good.
Yeah.
And with Planet X, our Cherv's worm in Russian. I hope I'm not pronouncing it incorrectly. But with Planet X, whenever and Unbox Industries, right, keep this between us, right? Whenever you order anything from them, they always put the value as $10 on the postage, so I don't get any extra customs tax when it lands over here. So it's usually anyway. So it's like that. The price I pay with them is the price, because I think it comes from Hong Kong. They're quite easygoing about that sort of thing.
Unbox Industries too. Like I would actually say they're really good for having. If you scroll through their page, the prices are all over the map. Like you even said, I can't say what's affordable for people, but it's nice to see variety.
Oh yeah,
that's what's nice.
You don't always know how much these things cost to make it. I mean, like so this thing, they've that's officially licensed from Namco. So I mean, it's like you don't know how much they're paying for. And I think it was, I can't remember. It was maybe $150, something like that, I believe. But that's it painted. I mean, this one was 120 from Planet X. It is really good, and the artist who does these, Naoki, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his surname, but it's called Creepy Giants. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I don't know. But the thing with, they're really satisfying to hold. I never had these. I've got no sort of nostalgia value with these sort of things. Like, I think a lot of people had the sort of Godzilla toys in the 60s and things, but not me. I just heard of these a few years ago. But
I was a kid that now I see on shelves and I kick myself because you had no idea what the heck they were. They felt different than all the other toys as a kid. And so now you see them on certain shelves and you're like,
yeah,
especially the old school ones.
I think I like this. Maybe it's the size of these. I think it maybe makes you feel a bit like a kid because it makes you feel small. You know, having it in your hand. It's kind of like, it's almost like this is about how big a He-Man would have been, I guess. When maybe not, but like,
As a kid.
I'm probably just talking shit. But it's like, at first I didn't understand it. At first I was kind of like, well, it's kind of just a rip-off of the guy out of Resident Evil 2, isn't it? But it's, well, I guess it is kind of that, but like it's just sort of like, you know, I like to see where the artists have taken inspiration from, really. And
how many points of articulation does that have too? Because like the fact that they've got to pop those into the sockets and have them still function.
Yeah, the legs move and the arms and the hands twist, I believe. You've got to be kind of careful with vinyl sometimes. It can be a bit. I mean, the one thing I would say for anyone who's tempted by these and thinking it's too much money to spend. I mean, I think the big, I haven't tapped my phone here for some reason, but I think the big put off for a lot of people is, it's like, yeah, I'd like to have that for a while, but it's $150. And what if after a year I want to sell it? I'm going to have to sell it for $20 or something. But I mean, usually with these things, because they're quite limited runs, they hold the value somewhat. It's like I was chatting to a guy who collects Rolexes, and I was like, why on earth do you collect? I was saying, do they increase in value? And he says, well, not really. But they're quite stable, and he enjoys it while he has it, and it's kind of like that. And I mean, generally in the Sofubi world, like with the likes of Wonder Goblin or these lot, you'll pay maybe 120, 150 for a blank, or 350 to 400 for a painted version. So if you're so inclined and you want to paint these, it's a fun little thing it's a bit of an investment on your behalf, both of money and in your own skills, because if you fuck up a painted one, you might not get your money back. But like if you buy one of these for 150, paint it, you can improve on your painting skills, and then sell them for $300 to $400 is the going rate. You put about £200 on for $200 for a paint job in the Sofubi realm is about the average. And if you want a cheap entry, go on, the way I've practiced a lot of them was I went on eBay, searched for vinyl Ultraman figures, and they're bootleg, but they're dirt cheap, and you can practice paint because it's quite tricky to paint vinyl.
Yeah, out of curiosity, what medium do you usually use when you are painting vinyl?
Well, the best one I've used is V color, but it's impossible to get over here. It's hard to get in the USA by all accounts. It's a Japanese specific vinyl paint, which kind of molecularly binds to the vinyl. The budget way I've got around that is using you can either get a kind of a vinyl paint or a PVC spray paint. If you put a base layer of that on, you can then use acrylics on top of there. And then most people, I mean, I spoke to, there's a guy in Britain who makes Sofubi called Zucati with a Z or a Z. He uses like a 2K clear coat, like it's meant for automotive use. Generally, I think if you can find anything for automotive use or anything that's not specifically designed for toys, try and get that, because it tends to be cheaper. It's, in general for stuff. But yeah.
That's a good tip right there.
I've seen people, I mean, some people don't use, another one you could do is, like say you had a nice marbled vinyl toy and you think, oh, I'd like to paint details on there, but I don't want to lose the marbling effect. I just want to paint the eyes, for example. You can use a clear coat as a primer. So you can use like a clear coat first, and then it'll retain the sort of the marble, and you just paint on top of that with you could probably get acrylics to adhere to a clear coat easier than straight to vinyl. I mean, I've had it, the first Bob Moss I made, I used a PVC paint on that because I'd been painting vinyl toys. And I thought, oh yeah, this would be great on that flexible resin. Look at his shirt, it's all cracked off. So, I mean, this was a prototype one, luckily. So the first batch I made didn't go out like this. This was just the prototype one, but I had to change it up, and I ended up, well, it was just acrylics works direct on this resin, thankfully. But I didn't know that at first. I thought it was going to be more difficult than it was. That's in the reject pile over there.
I'm glad you mentioned the clear coat too, because I actually had a piece last night I was working on that was right where the brain went, where it was like, yeah, if I'm going to be using a different medium, and I'm afraid that even that the new medium is going to add any water to the other medium, spray it first, so that way any of the water from my new medium wasn't going to cause any dripping or running of the old medium.
There's a lot to think about with these things. I mean, it's often like layers, you know, like I've sometimes done it where I've used a clear coat that dries quicker than the paint. And if you haven't let your paint dry completely and you add the clear coat on, and then your clear coat's dry, but your undercoat's still dry, and it sort of causes cracked effects and things on the... It's like I sort of dipped a toe in oil painting briefly, and you have to sort of, for the first layers, you mix a sort of a solvent in with the oil for your first layers, and then you add in a more slow drying mixture with the pigment, like an olive oil or something, for example, on the top layers, so that they're slower to dry, so that the under layers dry quicker because of the solvent mix and things. So I guess I've done it before where I've painted something really nice, went hey, and then clear coated it, but unbeknownst to me, the paint underneath hasn't been dry, and it makes the clear coat sticky, or it can crack it, or things like that. But you live and learn. I mean, I do try and go for archival quality where possible. Usually, a lot of these toys, I've had them sat around for about 6 months before I ever sold one, because I did kind of think, well, what if over time, you know, sometimes these resins yellow over time, or sometimes they might have a reaction with the paint. So it often takes 2-3 months. So it's not like Mattel levels of product testing where I'm doing it for years. They're not kid friendly. I'm not paying for all that nonsense.
And out of curiosity,
but they don't fault the bits.
Yeah. How much gore is too much gore? Out of curiosity, on those like scare bears or the scare glows.
Well, I would say you can never have too much gore. But I did think it did seem to be a little better when I kind of reined it in a bit and kind of kept it round the sort of, rather than if I'd have just caked the whole bone in blood, it would have just been like a big red bone. That sounds weird, but I tried to keep it round the joints.
Do you find that it affects how the glow powder ends up coming through?
Well, it's the blood paint does seem to be sort of semi-translucent. That's why I mainly try to... I'd put the blood on and then wipe it away from the high points, like the top of the bones, because I wanted to leave the glowing resin exposed. I'm not sure if I can put a photo on here. No, I don't think I can.
No.
Yeah, I had a photo of... I'll upload a photo later on. I've got some photos of it glowing in the dark and stuff.
But you don't... doesn't really matter. You could drench that thing down. After you give it the alcohol rub, doesn't really matter.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of that, mate. What did you say?
Sorry, I was just curious. When you add that much gore onto them, do you use like an alcohol to kind of move it away from the glow parts?
Well, it was that gore paint was Citadel paint. Citadel Blood for the Blood God is the name. They always give them cool names. It's just blood paint, but yeah, it's like water based, so it kind of, I was just using a water on the cloth for that. If you're using those Tamiya paints, they have to be a bit of alcohol to get it off. Sometimes I've like spray painted the bones I use acrylic spray paints, and then we use the alcohol to wipe it off. But the spray paint it just adds in a really solid color, and there's like there's no fade with it, like when you're painting it on. I'll usually paint in some solid black, and then I add a black wash, and then I was painting the blood on top of that to kind of add some depth underneath the gore.
I think you even have a reel that shows that how you do like the layers on it between them.
I mean, I'm not really. It's not. I haven't done a whole lot of painting of toys really. I just sit and watch too many YouTube videos. I like watching videos of things that I don't do. So like I've been watching like people making miniatures quite a lot, and a lot of the techniques, those sort of painted techniques, are from them basically. They start with the base colors and then add washes and then highlights at the end. But it's kind of limiting somewhat what I can do with these skeletons, particularly as they're a flexible resin. And I want to keep a lot of the color of the resin so that they glow. You know, if I cover it in paint, they won't glow anymore.
Perfect. Fair. Sorry, man. I was kind of curious.
Yeah, I was just looking at this question list here. I think I've pretty much went through all them ones anyway. Well, I haven't, but...
Well, I got kind of one last one here. What do you find is the thing that you replenish the most in your workshop?
The resin, I suppose, but that's mainly due to kind of apprehension. Like, you don't... I mean, the place I order from is... Well, I order two places. I don't know if any user in the UK. I get most of my resin from Easy Composites, and I get most of my silicone from MB Fiberglass, is the name of the place. But like, I mean, it's the resin, I suppose, I use most. Once you've made your silicone, I mean, your molds, you'll get about, these molds, you can get about 40, 50 casts out of them. I think the Bob Moss one, I got about 50 casts, but it was a flexible resin. That clear resin's quite harsh on the molds. I kind of anticipate these are going to start playing up soon. The casts are still looking good at the minute, but maybe another 10 casts and I think they'll be done maybe.
Okay, I've never heard of anybody pulling that many figures from a mold, personally.
Well, the Bob Moss ones, it's a flexible resin, so it's quite soft on the molds. And I mean, the first 8 I made, I didn't use any mold release spray. I was just pulling them. But that resin, when you take it out, it's, you know, what the thing that normally rips your mold is, like that resin I was showing before, the P60, is it? The firm stuff that I was saying you can sand and all that. It's great for painting and things. It's just when you got to take it out the mold, it's rock hard. In like any little bits of flashing on here are quite sharp, and I mean, anything like where I've cut those slits that I was talking about earlier. The resin that's in those is going to be quite sharp because I've cut it. It just basically it rips the molds quicker. When I'm removing the flexible resin, it's just sort of gently plops out rather than like this sort of jaggedy, minging. Yeah, I'm not very. I haven't got very good descriptive words, but the flexible resin is less harsh. I got a good decent amount out of them. I don't think like people. I think you get a lot of folk who I suppose like. And I do it myself, where you don't want to go through the process of buying loads of different things to find out what's shit and what's good. You just want to spend, especially if you're on a limited budget, you just want to know the exact product to buy. Like a lot of people are always asking me, what's the exact brand you use and stuff like that. And it's like, but with me being in the UK, it's like that. I mean, I don't mind telling people that stuff. I mean, it's water clear polyurethane from that Easy Composites, but it's like. I don't think it really. I would always try and get it from your local. Try and support. I always try and get everything locally first. I mean, I'm getting that stuff in the UK, only because there's nowhere local. You know, you should try and support your local economy and all that kind of thing. I would say, wherever you're at. And it's also cheaper. But I mean, there's going to be different work methods depending on what products you're using. You know, I've catered my whole method around basically me wanting to copy that original rubbish figure. And then I was like, oh, well, I can't do that with firm resin. I'll have to use flexible resin. And then I was like, oh, well, now I can't paint flexible resin. I'll have to find a new method to paint flexible resin. And then it's like, I did all that. And I was like, I hated all that. So I've moved on to that clear resin, which is totally different now. But I've had to find a new process for the clear resin. So, I mean, chances are, if you're not in the UK, those products I use specifically, you're not going to be able to get easily, or it's going to be so expensive, it's not going to be worth doing. But you'll be able to find an equivalent. Yeah. Or just use some, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling here. I forgot what the question was, if there even was one.
I think it was basically originally started off on like, what do you replenish the most? And then you kind of got to talk.
Oh, yeah, resin.
Fair. Yep.
I should have just said resin. I've kept you here for like an hour and a half now, man. I feel a bit bad. You probably want to go get your breakfast, is it? Yeah. Are you what? You'll be on your lunch by now, are you?
Yeah, it's around lunchtime-ish now at this point. Yeah, it's 2 in the afternoon. But if anything,
2 in the
I've
afternoon.
taken up enough of your afternoon. I'm sure you're itching to get into the creative grind and.
Oh well, it's 7 o'clock at night here now, so I'm probably gonna go and have. Well, I'm living out here in the country on my own. I'll probably have a depressing ready meal for one. Thinking I've got a Sunday roast dinner that you put in the microwave, and it says it's just like Mama used to make on the packaging, and I believe it.
I love it, man.
What are your plans for the day then? Are you going to be? You're not going to be sitting editing all this shit, are you?
I'm probably going to make sure that it all uploads nicely and make sure that it's all like available and ready. And yeah.
Well, sorry you've got to hear my voice twice. I know when I edit things, usually by the time I've finished editing them, I hate. Usually the song that I'm editing it to, it's like I hate it now. I've ruined a few. I need to stop using a lot of my favorite songs on those videos on Instagram, because by the time you've watched it again and again, like editing it, you're like, I'm never listening to Cypress Hill again.
Isn't it annoying too when you're trying to post it, but your phone keeps glitching out, so you keep hearing that same like, baby, and
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. Kate, thank you. I would just like to.
Yeah, you can spoil music for yourself doing that. I used to have I used to have a Cypress Hill song as my ringtone, and now whenever the album plays, I always think my phone's ringing, and I'm like, I haven't had that ringtone for 10 years now, but it's ruined the album. I can't listen to Black Sunday anymore without getting a fright halfway through.
I love it. I love it.
Well, yeah, man, it's been good talking to you. I hope I've not bored you, like blethered your head off too much. I feel like I've just rambled at you. I never even really got to. What's good on your end? Have you got any good toys you're excited for at the minute? I've just been sat blathering about myself all the time.
You know what? Actually, only because you mentioned earlier about the Keshi rubber figures. Are you familiar with Simeon Cheese?
Cool. Well, this is the guy singing Cheese. Did you say this is the guy who made this?
Simeon Cheese and also the Rojo toys and worst toy design ever. But what's sick about it, man, is it's like a little rubber figure, just like you get in a gumball machine, that has all these little like additional weaponized hands that you can
that's
in
good.
the back. And I don't know why.
I always like a good accessory.
Yeah. Honestly, it's just probably one of the most interesting, fun. You know, something that's just like a kid's. Yeah, this is a very like nostalgic kid.
I always thought it was. It reminds me a little bit of those. I mean, it's obviously smaller, but it reminds me of those kind of Have you seen those Glyos figures with the Glyos? That's not a realm I've ever dealt. I've never dipped a toe, but like I always thought, a lot of people who were sort of, you know, thinking about how do I do articulation, you could do that sort of method I mentioned earlier and just copy those Glyos figures. You'd think that would surely work quite. I don't know. It's not something I've. But I thought that would be quite fun to have that sort of interchangeability with other people's bootlegs, like right off the bat. You know, you could just buy other people's shit and mix your head on them or whatever.
And of course, Hoodwink's chiming in there too. Excited about all the Hoodwink he is. Yeah, Hoodwink's actually doing some really neat things. Like the last thing
I forgot to mention Hoodwink. I have not slept for days waiting for his next drop. That's why it keeps slipping my mind. I dream of him or her every night. Sorry.
Yeah, man. Groovy. Well, you know what? I'm gonna let you get on with your day, though, man. I really appreciate you and doing all this, dude. And let me just fucking hammer you in the seat all day.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Well, I would have been sat here anyway. I've been. I'm just going to sit and put these Scare Bears in some packets now, and then I think I'd mentioned earlier about people like if there was 2 or 3. I'll have to see how many there is, but I'll check my messages now, and if people will want them. Otherwise, I'll probably list them about 8 if there's any left, but there might not be. I might just put a picture up and go, sorry, not for sale.
I'm watching it off, and you're gonna have like 50 messages asking you for Scare Bears and Scare Glows. And
I just want to do something else now. I'm sick of the bloody death of them.
Yeah, I think we actually are gonna need a whole Peppa Pig line. I think personally, now that you've kind of teased the one, I think we're really gonna need like a battle stage where there's green grass and fences, and we're gonna need like the whole family. Yeah.
I think if there's one figure I've ever made that I need to go all in on, it's definitely Pepper. She's going to need the full barnyard buddies. I don't know, like, we'll see. I might have trouble selling them in certain sort of Middle Eastern countries. I know they're not that keen on this sort of thing.
Yeah, but you know, if you really want to sell to the Americans, I bet you if you put the the scare glow body with the Peppa Pig head, those things will fly in a heartbeat.
I mean, that is that does sound pretty good. I've got a couple of ideas. I don't really want to show them, I guess, because they're not quite ready. But I kind of like that thing with the slime feature I was showing before, the Toxic. It's like an amalgamation of sort of Toxie, Muckman, like a couple of other figures that I'm going to put like little references to in there. So he's kind of going to be a tribute to all my favorite slime toys, I think. So I'm quite looking forward to doing that. But I've got a couple more like just. Actually, I want to start doing a sofubi. Really, I want to start sculpting something to make into a sofubi. But it means making a monster clay sculpt, making a mold. I would have to make a wax cast and then send a wax copy over to Japan to get made into a metal mold. And then, I mean, to me, that would be great, just to get a big box full of the parts. Someone else has done all that, and then all I got to do is paint them. It's just obviously that it's tricky over here because it's the weather's horrible all year round, and it's like I can't go outside to use my airbrush, and I can't really paint inside. So it'd be nice to get a studio sorted anyway, hopefully this year.
Well, why don't you just bring your tent into the house and just get like
I fucked off the tent. The tent that totally backfired last time I went to use it. Like I tried setting up a tent in the garden, and like I knelt down next to it. So I put my toy there and I spray painted it, and it's like the paint just goes in the corner of the tent and right straight back up in my face. I ended up kind of crouched in the tent. I looked like I don't know, someone who was really struggling in life. And I was sort of like holding this outside, sort of spraying towards the outside of the tent. But I mean, I haven't been to any festivals that are out this year. I normally go to a festival, so I just pretended for a bit.
I love it, man. Groovy. Well, dude, honestly, I'm taking up enough of your time, dude. I'm gonna let you go and try and get some dinner in.
Yeah, I've got a festival to go to.
Thanks so much again. Take care.
All right, man. Yeah, good speaking with you anyway, bud. All right, mate.
Been a
Take it
pleasure.
easy, man. All the best. Cheerio.